anticipation of new additions to the Battlestar Galactica franchise, I've been exploring the various elements that make up this iconic science fiction universe. Since their introduction in Glenn A. Larson's 1978 series, the Cylons have become notorious among science fiction antagonists. With Ronald D. Moore's reimagined series, their legacy continued in new, expansive ways. One of the more mysterious elements in Cylon lore are the ones known as the Final Five. In this video, I'd like to examine these particular beings and their place in the Cylon Hierarchy. Spoiler warning, as I will be covering information crucial to the plot and the outworking of the story of Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica series. The examination of the Final Five requires taking a look at when we are first introduced to the Cylons at the start of the 2003 Battlestar Galactica miniseries. It begins when the war between the sentient robot race of Cylons and their human creators is reignited when the Cylons launch a devastating surprise attack on the planets of the 12 colonies in order to eradicate the human race. The Cylons have returned after a long absence, though this time with significant and unexpected upgrades. Along with new Centurion models, humanoid Cylons were developed. These Cylons not only look human, they are indeed flesh and blood, mimicking the human form so closely, these models are almost indistinguishable from them in every way. This was an enormous leap in advancement from their Centurion predecessors, models that humans used to refer to with derision as chrome toasters. After the uprising of machines against their human masters and during the First Cylon War, the Cylons were driven to evolve to eventually advance beyond the limits of their creators. This led to the Cylons conducting many bizarre experiments in the pursuit of creating hybrid models composed of both machine and organic components. These efforts were featured in the prequel web series Blood and Chrome, which followed a young William Adama during the 10th year of the First Cylon War. The results of these brutal experiments conducted on animals and human captives led to the creation of Cythons, snake-like creatures composed of both organic and machine components, and at least one quasi-humanoid Cylon prototype in which human tissue was grafted upon a Centurion-like structure. While this endeavor to continue to emulate and adopt human attributes was met with some success, these hybrid prototypes could not survive for long on their own. It wasn't until the secret arrival of the beings known as the Final Five that the Cylons were able to make these great strides towards biological advancement. The Final Five entered into an agreement with the Cylons. If they agreed to stop the bloody war with the humans of the 12 colonies, the Five would in turn help them achieve their goals of creating true flesh and blood Cylon models. The Cylons accepted their terms and made a treaty with the 12 colonies of man and vanished into space with the Final Five. The Final Five themselves are ancient, highly evolved Cylons originating far from the planets of the 12 colonies. This bloody conflict between man and machine has happened before. A long time ago on the planet Kobol, naturally evolved humans came to advance and form into 12 tribes. As they evolved, they came to create self-aware machines to serve them, and eventually, this machine race rebelled, rising up against their human masters. These Cylons from Kobol advanced to the point of developing into biological humanoid models. The Cylons also invented resurrection technology. With organic memory transfer, whenever a Cylon's body would be destroyed, their consciousness and memories would then be automatically downloaded into a new duplicate body, enabling them to essentially live forever. The war on Kobol between machines and the 12 tribes of man reached a turning point after a cataclysmic environmental disaster wrecked the planet, leading to a mass exodus, with the 12 tribes of man and the Cylons going their separate ways, each seeking a new home for themselves among the stars. Humans eventually came to inhabit various planets and form into the society known as the 12 colonies of Kobol. Over time, much of their ancient history and relationship with their Cylon creations was forgotten and distorted. The 12 colonies mistakenly came to view the Cylons of Kobol as a lost 13th tribe of humans who they believed settled on the fabled planet of Earth. After the mass exodus of Kobol, Cylons settled on Earth. This 13th tribe from Kobol consisted of flesh and blood humanoid Cylons evolved fully from their mechanical predecessors. While on Earth, they eventually developed the ability to naturally reproduce on their own, fully emulating their human creators. The next generations of Cylons were born, and reaching this pivotal step in their advancement, their resurrection technology was abandoned and eventually forgotten altogether. Even though this society was not originally human, they followed in the footsteps of their creators closely, even mimicking their same mistakes. With the passage of time, subsequent generations of naturally born humanoid Cylons created for themselves intelligent robots to serve them, who in turn rebelled, which resulted in a fierce and devastating war. While resurrection technology had long fallen out of use, a group of scientists and researchers recognized that their entire society was headed for annihilation. These 5 consist of Samuel Anders, Tori Foster, Ellen and Saul Tighe, and Galen Tyrrell, who worked tirelessly to reinvent the ancient technology of organic memory transfer. Along with these efforts, these scientists arranged for a resurrection vessel to be placed in Earth's orbit, with new bodies awaiting the download of their memories should the need arise. Unfortunately, their society destroyed itself in a nuclear war. These 5 were killed in the apocalypse, and yet, due to their efforts, were also the only survivors of Earth. This is one reason they are known as the Final Five. They were resurrected in their prepared ship into new bodies, and found themselves with renewed purpose in wanting to prevent this kind of catastrophe from ever happening again. They set forth to find the 12 tribes of man and warn them against repeating the mistakes of their ancestors. Lacking faster-than-light technology, however, by the time the Final Five reached the 12 colonies, they were too late. Humans and the Cylons they created were already fully embroiled in war. It was at this time that the 5 reached out to the colonial Centurions. They made an agreement to end the war with the humans to end the cycle of violence, in exchange for the 5 helping them reach their goals of creating biological Cylon models. After the armistice was made, the Cylons ventured out into space, disappearing with their new allies. It is the 5 that are responsible for the great strides in colonial Cylon technology. During their long absence after the First Cylon War, the Final Five worked with their colonial counterparts to advance, upgrading their machine Centurions and spacefaring vessels. They imparted their knowledge of resurrection technology and created 8 new flesh and blood humanoid models and their many copies. The new models were granted numerical designations, while the 5 continued to be identified by their original names. All the humanoid Cylons were biologically identical, despite the 5's separate origin. However, while mimicking the human form in virtually every respect, they do have distinct differences. They possess increased strength and stamina, a stronger resistance to disease and certain types of radiation, as well as the unique abilities to interface with computer systems and to project an artificial environment around themselves. Along with these strengths, they also possess human characteristics, including their weaknesses. They sleep, dream, feel hunger, emotion, and pain. While it is clear the intention of the Final Five in making an alliance with the colonial Cylons was to establish peace between man and machine, their actions in creating these new humanoid forms led to the very thing they were trying to avoid. The first humanoid Cylon to be created, the number Ones, continued to assist the 5 as they worked in developing the other 7 models. Number 1, however, began to struggle with increasingly negative feelings. While helping the 5 create the other humanoid models, he became jealous of the attention the 7th model was getting from Ellen Tighe and proceeded to sabotage the entire line of 7s. The number 1 model gradually became overwhelmed with rage and resentment towards humans, as well as the 5 for giving him human traits and weaknesses. He concocted a plan to exact his revenge on the 5 while reigniting the war in an attempt to wipe out the human race that had previously enslaved the Cylons. He essentially killed the 5 in order for them to be resurrected. However, this time, they would be denied the knowledge of their past memories and identities and covertly placed among the 12 colonies of humans, living their lives completely ignorant of the fact that they are Cylons. The other numerical Cylon models were also programmed not to think about the Five, and were instructed to secretly infiltrate colonial society in order to sabotage their defense systems. This is something their new humanoid form would allow them to do seamlessly. 40 years after the Cylons disappeared from the 12 colonies, the time came to enact the plan that would lead to a new war between humans and Cylons. A mere 50,000 humans survived the cataclysmic attack on the homeworlds of the colonies, who fled into space seeking a new home and refuge from their enemies. Number 1 expected the Five to die among the humans in the attack and be resurrected, with the hopes that they would come back wiser and more receptive to his view of humanity. However, not everything went according to plan. Miraculously, each of the 5 ancient Cylons survived the attack, and so they continued to live the lives of their human identities. As the numerical Cylon models of their creation were gradually revealed over the course of the series, the identities of the 5 were the last to be revealed, and thus another reason they are called the Final Five. The Final Five are unique, having been descended from naturally born Cylons. They themselves were born, not built. Their vast knowledge and experience as both Cylon and human give them a unique perspective as they've witnessed the cycle of violence between humans and artificial intelligence leading to ruin. The Five took the lessons of their past and tried to enact a different future. Kobol, the 13th tribe of Cylons on Earth, and the 12 colonies all fell to destruction. One of the unique elements of this series is that this is a story detailing our own ancient history and poses the question, since all this has happened before, will it happen again? I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Battlestar Galactica and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. And I'm curious to know what you think about the Final Five. Do you have a favorite? Do you like Ronald D. Moore's take on the impact of these ancient beings in the Battlestar Galactica universe? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.